Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Stolly Dolly Scaries.
I'm your host, John Ritchie Jr.
And I'm Kyryn Hayes. And today we will be watching cult classic, Sleepaway Camp.
You won't be coming home.
That's a letdown.
You know,
Something after that. They let us down.
There's so many taglines. I feel like I'm going to have to look up a couple and then I'm going to have to give some later because
That's the main one. I looked up a ton of movie posters and that was the main one.
You know what? I found one. It says, "You'll go there on a bus and come back in a bag." And there's
That's
plenty
so much better.
And there's plenty more where that came from.
That is savage. I like
Right?
that so much more. Our movie cocktail of the day is going to be the Aunt Martha's Martini. It is a mix of OJ, Saint Germain, love your strawberries. It's fucking strong, and I guarantee Aunt Martha, as kooky as she is having something quite similar every morning. We are also adding a new feature to our podcast, a fun little drinking game. Anytime Angela does her iconic stare, take a little sippy of your drink.
Don't blink.
Honestly, I have so much respect for her. I watched it many times for this, and she has a lot of patience, a lot of determination. She does not break her stare. It's inspiring.
It is. I wish I could navigate life that way. Just, not for me. I wear, you can read everything on my face.
Yeah, same.
I wish I could have been at this camp maybe during this time.
Dude, it was always my dream to go to summer camp. I don't know why, but I just thought in my mind it was like a rich people thing. I think because I saw Parent Trap one too many times, and those people always seem like they had it together. But this movie has made me realize perhaps it was a positive that I never made it.
Yeah.
Could have been me.
Could have been you. I also never went to sleepaway camp. And probably that is a good thing I didn't. I mean, I probably would have hated it. I'm dramatic. I just fucking throw temper tantrum. I would probably be, we're gonna talk about some scenes for sure. I also think that we might need to do for the first time ever a little precursor what's the word? Is it a disclaimer? Is that what we call it?
I think it's a disclaimer.
A disclaimer.
A warning?
A warning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this movie is very politically incorrect. There's some offensive things. It has not translated well to today. I don't even think it really translated well then, but nobody really poked at it. I've seen this movie quite a few times, and so I didn't think much. I think maybe the first time I watched it, I was probably like, whoa, but I didn't think to warn you when I recommended it. And I can't wait to hear what you think. I think it'll be super interesting for a first timer.
I watched this movie at 35 years old for the first time.
I can't believe that. Knowing you, I mean, you're like a horror movie aficionado, so I'm pretty surprised.
I wouldn't say an aficionado, but I've seen a lot of stuff, but not enough. Clearly, there's a lot of movies to go through. Never enough. I like that. Never enough because, today was the first fall launch in Starbucks land.
Dog, I know. It was just happened to be rolling into the lot. I hadn't been there in a couple weeks, and there it was. It's like a beacon to me.
A beacon.
It was so exciting. Did you work today?
I did.
Oh
yeah.
Oh, was it busy? People popping off?
It was very busy. everyone's getting into their fall routine and they want their pumpkin spice. Every basic bitch was there. Every gay was there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
all
Pretty
got the
exciting.
damn pumpkin spice. Right? We did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have to. It is a rite of passage.
It
It is
is.
fall time. We're ready. All right, let's get into it. So Sleepaway Camp, released in theaters on November 18th, 1983, directed by Robert Hiltzik, starring Felissa Rose, Jonathan Tiersten, Christopher Collette, Desiree Gould, and Kyryn Fields. So it starts out with the most suspenseful music ever. And Sleepaway Camp comes on, the title comes up on the screen, and you see like this beautiful fall foliage in the background. And this opening lasts an eternity. It's way too long. They're showing like abandoned camp. There's an abandoned basketball court and cabins. And then randomly throughout this entire thing, this music is just for no reason. It's very unsettling.
It's definitely off season when they're shooting this beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you said it. The music when I first watch it, it's giving old school. It's giving the 1980s.
Something. Yeah.
It's giving something. Panning. And also, let's talk about the budget for a second. $350,000 to make this damn movie.
I did not know that. Well, I am even more impressed. This is a piece of art that they have crafted out of nothing. That's amazing.
Homeboy Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, and this is a testament to his mom, I think what happened was his mom passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what he did with the inheritance was do this movie. So that might be a nod to old Ma, little Ma, a doer. So that speaks a lot
sweet.
to it. But
Yeah.
I think it was wild that it was a $350K budget and they made that back in the opening week in 1983.
Yeah.
So
what? They made it back like I didn't know that
they made
either.
$350 in 1983 in the opening week.
Rightfully so. This is something I would have gone back to the theater multiple times. The first time I watched, I won't say because I would give anything away, but I had a reaction. So the opening is very long. It's very intense, it's suspenseful. They're building it up for you. They cut back to the camp lake, and it's a beautiful day. They cut to this little sailboat, and there's a brother and sister on it, and they're kind of like arguing with one another in the most intense New York accents any little kids could ever have. Cut it out. Did not. Did too. Daddy, tell her to stop. They cut to the dad who's like sunbathing. West Side Story. Cut to the dad who's like sunbathing. He's like,
dad alert. Hot dad alert.
Some hot shorts. Everybody in this movie is wearing hot shorts. It's wild. So dad's like, "Go, kids, stop it. It's okay. Like, leave them alone." Then on the same lake, there are 3 teens in a motorboat. They are on their own. They're having a good time. It's a boy and girl who are driving the boat, and there is a girl water skiing on the back of the boat who looks like she's terrified. She is not having a good time. So they cut back to the kids on the boat, and they decide to like get together and play a little joke on their dad, and they get up behind him and they push him in. He's like, "Oh, whoa!" And they capsize the boat. It flips over. He's like, "Oh, you little tricksters." They're all in the water. And while this is happening, they cut back to the teens in the motorboat, and the girl is trying to convince the boy through her feminine wiles to let him let her drive the boat. And he's like, "Oh, I could lose my job, blah, blah, blah." And she, "Oh, come on. I know how to do it. It'll be okay. Come on. And he relents, clearly wanting to cop a feel, and he lets her drive the boat. And then they cut back to the kids in the water. And I think this is when a man comes outside and is like, "Hey, John, the doc's here. We got to go." And the kids are like, "Oh, Aunt Martha's here." And you find out that that is John's sister, I'm assuming. And they're like, "Oh, is Ricky here? Oh, okay." Then they cut back to the kids in the motorboat, who the girl is now driving. And as soon as she got in the driver's seat, she decided to look behind her the entire way. Both of them are just looking back at this water skier, not at all looking in front of them. And the water skier sees what's about to happen. She's like, "There's a boat!" And they're still like, "What'd she say? What?" Both of them. Like, neither one of them. At least Craig, that's your boat. Why aren't you looking ahead of you? They're both looking behind them, and they turn around, but they turn around way too late. They see they're about to hit these kids and the dad, and Craig says, "Oh, turn the boat." And the girl does one of these maneuvers. Obviously, it does nothing. So he goes to turn it full tilt, and he accidentally hits the speed, runs just right the fuck over this boat, these kids, the dad, everybody. And
Decapitated daddy is what I say. I mean, homeboy got scalped. They ran right over the other boat, and he is the only one that we could see at this point,
Right.
He's the only one in view. So
and this scene is pure chaos. So they run over him. The girl who was water skiing is in the water, and she is overacting for what seems like an eternity. Oh my God! Somebody help the people! And the kids that actually hit them are looking, and they just look confused. They're like looking like, "What happened there? What?" The guy, the short shorts man who called out to John, is looking confused too. He whispers for a second, like right when it happens, like, "John." And then he just looks like nobody has a reaction except for the water skier, and her reaction is like bonkers. And they just keep cutting between all of these reactions so many times. And it is a perfect clue for what the rest of the movie will be, because they saw that and they decided to go for it. The rest of the movie, it is just constant reactions.
It's just so interesting. When I mean, this first scene like says a lot, tells a lot. When I first saw this, I was like, "What the fuck am I watching? What? Who is this? Where is this?" I was like, "I get it. It's an old film, but like, what is this acting? What are we doing?" After they run the dad over with their boat, it's a catastrophic event, like, to start the film. So you're like, "Okay, I'm watching a horror movie." Love that.
Yeah.
And then the acting of the water skier is so over dramatic that it feels like, who told, like, I can't believe that they put that in the editing. They edit her.
I love that they did.
They hit the boat. They hit the boat, and then she's automatically in the water. Like, that edit was real sharp, A. B, overacted, which is funny. Really funny. The cut scene to the partner, I'm going to call him a partner, on the beach, who says, "John." Like, that sharp, like, close up to his face. I was like, I was so confused. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you're like, "Oh, I know what they're giving me. I'm going to McDonald's. I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
A cheeseburger, a fries, a shake, or whatever. I know what they're selling."
Yeah.
And in this moment, I was like, I know I'm watching a horror movie. I heard the music in the beginning, and then this scene happens. Then I'm like, I don't
You
know
didn't know what's
if
what. I think that's the thing. Like, I had the same reaction when I first watched it. I'm like, what? Like, it's like sensory overload. It's like, what the fuck is going on? There's so many things that are weird. So that happens. You see the dad's like body floating in the water, and then you see one of the kids like what do you call it? Life vest. You see
that's
one of the kids' life vest, like that's disheveled, and it pops up out of the water, and you assume at least one of the kids died.
we fast forward 8 years later. It's this beautiful house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this woman is just calling to the children.
Hurry, sweeties! We don't want to be late for the boss! Goodness, no. No, that wouldn't do at
Yeah.
all.
She has the most
Beautiful.
interesting way of talking of any human being. It's
Yeah.
so overpronounced and loud, and even when the children are in front of her, it's like she's talking in a play. And then
Yes.
she talks to herself aside, like, Richard, Angela, you don't want to be late for the bus. No, that wouldn't do at all. Like,
Wow.
she has the most distinct, like, amazing. Desiree Gold is just gold in this
Is
role.
gold.
Mhm.
And what I'm just gonna like touch on what she's wearing just to give the viewers a little picture. This cuckoo bananas lady is wearing a blue and red beret, some like khaki situation underneath, maybe trousers or like a cutoff short. Kind of gives me like Troop Beverly Hills, if anybody has seen
Yes,
that. It's
100%.
given like that underneath.
Yeah.
We got a red bow, like feathery.
Mhm.
She's got a loose brown rope tie belt in the mix. Pinstripe blue button down with like this mellow yellow knit over it with bright red lipstick, bright red nails to match.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I mean, honestly, I felt like it could have came out of a Tom Brown runway like today.
Oh. It's very distinct. She has her own fashion sense. She is unhinged. She calls the children down. And they're both wearing their Camp Arawak t-shirts. You know they're on their way to camp. She hands them a bag of goodies. I packed you a bag of goodies. Wasn't that nice of me?
Beautiful.
And you can tell. So I don't know if I mentioned that. So her son is Ricky. She's the only one that calls him Richard. And then Angela, we find out, is the child that survived the boat crash. So she took her in, she adopted her. They're on their way to camp. They're about to leave. And did you notice, not to poke at the bag situation again, but they both go to pick up their bags, and these bags are like teeny tiny little nothing bags. It's like a toiletry bag. And again, like nobody who's ever in charge of these decisions is not being realistic. Get those people some duffels. Regardless, they're about to leave. And Aunt Martha's like, "Oh, I got you your physicals for camp. You need these physicals, but don't tell them how you got them. Even though I am a doctor." It's really weird. She's really weird about it.
It's the same thing. It's the reason why I wrote "What the fuck am I watching?" In the beginning scene, because this just really highlighted that for me. I was like, "Who is this woman? What are we doing? Why are you talking in this way to these children?" I didn't even notice the bags, but I'm gonna leave that to you because you're a bag queen.
I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's weird.
Well, I know you will.
They're going away for camp.
They're going away for camp. How long are we going to camp? But
That's a good
also,
question. Yeah.
I don't know how long we're going away. I don't know how these kids put up with this mother
You can
on a
tell
daily
Ricky's
basis.
over it. He's like, "Okay, mom." Like, you can tell he's over the shit. And Angela, you can already tell she's quiet. She's very meek and
I mean,
doesn't say much.
if you thought the aunt was weird, Angela is just as weird. Except she's not saying a damn word.
Which I think is, I don't know if it's preferred. I find Aunt Martha wildly interesting. I just want to know if when she got that script, if she decided to play it that way, if they told her to do that, like, I have so many follow-up questions about this role as to why she decided to do it the way that she did it. And my question is, like, had she only ever done theater and she thought that was the way to act? I don't know. She's pretty wild. Pretty interesting lady. Certainly on some pills. So she gives
I'll
them
have
their
what
physicals.
she's having.
Me too. So she gives them their physicals, and off they go to camp. And the next thing is the bus. The bus is pulling up to the camp, and it's like pure pandemonium. This scene, like, these kids are fucking bulleting off of.
They're getting right off that bus and they are booking it.
They are like falling down the hill, like they are running into this camp. And I've never been to camp, so maybe that is a normal thing. But I was like, whoa, I don't know what the fuck's happening here. It is chaos. And as this is happening, we get a brief glimpse of both Ronnie, who's one of the camp counselors, who ends up being kind of important. He is in the shortest shorts. I mean, this whole movie is pretty is pretty unbelievable with the costume choices. But these shorts are shorts. And standing next to him is Mel, oldie, with his cigar, and he is clearly the camp director. And we get a little brief glimpse of them before they cut to the kitchen staff.
When you cut to the kitchen staff, they kind of look like in a still that they're in a boy band, just off of the scene. You know, it's like a little high-low moment. There's there's a foreground. There's Chefy, and there's like the stews behind.
I could see that the way that it's like a triangle. You're right, and I don't know why they decided to pose him like that. And I can't imagine in real life the kitchen staff would be structured as such. It was weird. And we meet Artie, who is the grossest man to ever exist, and he says some really nasty things.
Look at all that young, fresh chicken.
Gross. Just gross. Fucking what? Is one of his fellow chefs is like, they're too young to be thinking of what you're thinking. And Artie responds with something like, oh, nobody's too young, or something like that. And Ben, instead of being like, you're fucking disgusting, and having like some type of reaction, Ben goes, oh, like silly guy. It's gross. I mean, they're clearly setting up Artie as like a pedophile, possibly just got out of prison. He says some real nasty shit. It's pretty offensive. This is one of those disclaimer moments I speak of. It's pretty dark. What'd you think?
It's real rough is what I will say. I mean, listen, we're diving into like pedophilia themes. We're talking about older, dirty ass men talking about young kids, not in the best way. And clearly not in a way that is right. So it's really hard to watch. But also like this is a fucking scumbag, and maybe that's what the director wanted to portray, is that this guy is a piece of shit, he's disgusting, whatever.
So we get a little taste of him. And then Ricky is walking down a hill with Angela, and his good old friend Paul comes up to say, hey, and Ricky introduces him to Angela. He kind of walks away, and then he turns around just to let Ricky know that Judy, who was there last year, has grown big boobs. You'll see. And Ricky's like, oh, man. And he turns to Angela, and he's like, oh, we were like, we were a couple. We were a thing last summer. So she'll probably be in your bunk.
Where do you get a load of Judy?
Mm-hmm.
Kids.
So Ricky walks Angela to her cabin, to the girls' cabin, and as they're walking, they see Judy across the field who's talking to a bunch of men. And he calls out to her, "Hey,
Boys.
Judy." Boys. But older boys. They're
Mhm.
not Ricky age boys.
Mhm.
They're more, seasoned. And she turns around, like Ricky calls out to her, like, "Hey, Judy." And she turns around and kind of snubs him, is like, "Hey," like, barely looks at him. One of the other guys in the group says, like, "Who's that wimp?" Like, they kind of snub him, and he's like, "Oh, he looks hurt, but he's tough." Ricky's probably my favorite character. And he kind of shows Angela into the cabin. Side note, Judy looked like doesn't she look, she has like such an older face, like even though she's like really teeny, like I just felt like she looked like she could have been 35. Like she has a very mature face, which maybe makes her a little bit more menacing. Like she looked more mature than the other girls, for sure.
She definitely, I mean, like when I first saw her, I was like, okay, we're getting some acting from a younger actress, And I was kind of excited that she was totally portraying the like I had my glow up since last summer.
Yeah.
And I have developed, and I'm seeing what's around. I'm going to talk to these older boys, and who is Ricky? Maybe I like Ricky, maybe I don't. What am I playing? Who am I playing? All of them kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of interested in like, okay, what's up her ass a little bit.
So Angela enters the cabin, followed quickly by Judy. And as Judy sits down at her bed when she enters, Angela is being really weird. She's sitting on her bed and she's facing towards Judy, and she's just she's just fucking locked in,
Death stare.
staring at Judy. And Judy's like, "What are you looking at, huh? Why don't you take a picture to last longer?" To be fair, though, I don't know if Judy ever really would have poked at Angela if Angela didn't start this war. I don't know why Angela's being such a mega weirdo right now. But she, to her credit, though, she doesn't break it. Like, she's throwing these insults at her, and Angela is just wide-eyed looking at her. Nothing's breaking that stare. Nothing's breaking her stride. And as she's staring at her, we meet Meg, who is one of two camp counselors in this bunk. I don't know what the age difference is supposed to be between these. Like, how much older do you think she is than Judy? Because the way that she acts with Judy throughout this movie is like weird. Like she's trying to impress her or something. And so I'm like, either Meg is really insecure or it can't be that much of an age gap. Either way, Meg, who is not much older than Judy, comes over and is like, "Man, we got a real winner here." And you can already tell they're going to be an alliance. They're against Angela, which again is weird and really inappropriate. Camp counselors are supposed to be on your side. And in the meantime, we meet the other camp counselor of the bunk, Susie, who is much kinder, and she goes over to Angela and is like, "Oh, you're Angela, right? We heard you're kind of quiet," or she says something like that. She's softer and she's sweet.
If I had a camp counselor that was like, who the fuck's this kid? I would probably turn into Ricky and be like, "What of it?"
It's
we're
weird.
We're much grown now, but when you're 11 or 12 or however old these youngins are, you don't know who the fuck you are. You barely know how to tie your shoe.
Yeah.
I can't recall a time when I was that young and have been like sure of myself.
Sure.
So they're probably dealing with the same old shit, and they're looking to these quote unquote older camp counselors to guide them in some way.
Right.
And, if you're a mute child, well, life might not be great. Might be kind of hellish.
Then the next scene, we're in the cafeteria and we find out that Angela hasn't been eating. She hasn't eaten for 3 days. So Meg gets Ronnie, who is the short shorts counselor we saw when all the kids first rolled up and he was yelling at him. He's kind of like the head honcho. Meg goes and grabs him and lets him know the situation, and he comes over and he's very sweet. He's like, "Oh, Angela, let's go and see Audie and see if he can get you something you like." So they go to the kitchen. We get to see good old head pedophile once more. And he says, "Oh, yeah, I think I got something in the walk-in you'd like." And then somebody comes in and lets Ronnie know he got a phone call, and he leaves Angela with this dirty old cook. And my problem here is, like, everybody's got to know Artie's situation. Nobody can be immune to that. Right? Like, I think he, like, puts out that energy. So for Ronnie, who seems like a really responsible guy, to do that and just leave her with this dirty fuckhead really bugged me, because I was kind of on Ronnie's side. But regardless, he leaves her with Artie. Artie takes her into the walk-in and is like, "Hey, you see anything you like?" And she's, not obviously saying anything. And he says, "I think I got something you like." And he starts to unbuckle his drawers. And luckily, as he's doing this, Ricky, love this guy, Ricky comes in, sailing to the rescue and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And Artie gets like flustered. "Oh, what are you doing here, kid?" And he kind of slams him up against the wall. And Ricky grabs Angela and they run out of there. Artie is clearly disgruntled. And Mel, who is the old man camp director, camp owner, is like, "Oh, what's going on there? What happened there?" And Artie says, "I don't know. Guess I scared him." And Mel says, "Guess so." Doesn't ask a single question.
There's a lot to unpack. I will objectify whatever that guy, that camp counselor in the red shorts, whatever, he might as well, Ronnie might as well be wearing underwear at this point. Listen, the sleeves are cut off. The red underwear is showing. This is why I say, like, we know what kind of fucking camp we're in, because if it goes the same way, if he could wear this underwear around these kids, what are we portraying here? What are we doing? When you think about it in like a bigger scope, you're like, man, was this the 80s?
I think
Like,
it was
that's
just the
I'm
80s.
just like,
I think everything went in the 80s.
is this the 80s? It was George for the 80s, but I'll take it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll watch it. Yes. Okay. He seems very kind. He seems very much like, let me take care of this little kid. Let me see if she can, like, she's not eating. So let's
Seems
find
genuine, for sure.
genuine.
Yeah.
And then we get to the Artie of it all, which, I mean, I'm not going to talk about this scene. It's disgusting. It's vile. You're trying to. Thank God for Ricky. I'm going to say that. Thank God for Ricky. I did a little fun fact. I heard they had to shoot that scene, maybe the one where Artie was like pushing Ricky up against the boxes in the pantry.
Yeah.
They did that so many times that he actually developed like a bruise on his back because of how much he had to like push up against the pantry stuff.
Wow.
When I rewatched that, I was like, good thing they put like a soft box behind him.
Finally. Yeah.
I heard, yeah. Somewhere that happened.
Ricky was given the most for this role. I love that kid. He comes through many times. Many times. So that happens. And then a few minutes later, next scene, Artie is looking into the biggest pot I've ever seen in my life. It is, I mean, the size of a human being. He's up on the step stool looking into this giant boiling pot when we get the POV killer, very a la Friday the 13th-esque. And they come in and you just see their hand and you can tell it's like a young hand. It's a child hand at the very least. And this
also, the like camera angle is a little bit
lower. Yeah, for sure.
So
So
you can for sure tell that it is childlike,
yeah, for sure. Clues.
or I guess like child height.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The camera points up and Artie's butt is disgusting. And he's wearing white pants, which is the least practical pant choice for a cook. And his butt is brown and he's just a sick fuck. So little child hand comes in and they shake the ladder that Artie is on. And he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Oh, does he say, "Oh, it's you," or he says something like that. Like you can tell he recognizes whoever it is doing what they're doing.
I did write in my notes, can we talk about this pot for a minute? Because this pot could have fit me inside of it. I'm 5'4". I could have fit my whole body in this thing. I could have made a little hot tub.
Yep.
It's so ginormous and so exaggerated, right?
Yeah.
And then we get the point of view of the killer.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first time that I was like, oh, I really like this. And also because like you said the same thing, Friday the 13th, Halloween, the view of the killer is one that is so it gives like intention to the scene. So when the person comes in and they like come in and like duck behind like, you know, the counter, and you're seeing like this green chair, and then you see this scumbag Artie come out of the pantry and he's like salting the fucking water to get that corn on the cob in there, right?
Yeah.
And then we do see Artie's butt. I'm not gonna lie, it is messy, it is dirty, it's kind of round.
It's like
just saying, it's kind of round, right? For all the I can't say it. It's round. I'll say that. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little push on the butt talks, and Artie pushes forward, but like there's a little shelf above the pot. So now he's holding onto the shelf and he's worried all of the sudden.
Yeah.
That like just a little push, he's over top of the pot. So now I'm like, I'm holding on. But if I'm Artie, I'm just stepping down. Am I right?
Oh, I think you're 100% right.
But instead, Artie looks back and says just like, "Oh, don't do this. I'll make you an ice cream sundae here," or whatever. I don't even know what he said. And then we see the hand, which another scene that I love is just like, you know, we're finally getting into the horror aspect of it. Just like the hand pull the chair a little further back.
Totally, yeah.
And now it's getting suspenseful. The music is going and we're just like, we're in there. And we're about to see this fucking scumbag. Something's going to happen to him.
This little hand eventually just pulls this little ladder out. And for some reason, he holds on to the pot. And obviously it comes down on him. And this thing just sears him with boiling water. And for as old as this movie is and the budget on it, the special effects are fucking bonkers. Like so good. Like his skin is boiled. Like even his eyes are like boiling. He's and Ben, his fellow cook, comes running in his underwear for some unknown reason, and they give us another beautiful reaction shot where they bounce between Artie and Ben just being like, what? For, I mean, an immeasurable amount of time. They just keep cutting between both of them until they cut ahead and you see Artie being carted away in an ambulance, still alive though, screaming out in pain, but still alive. And so my question is, why the fuck isn't he being like, it was this person? He's not dead. He's not mute. Like, he could scream out, it was this kid, but he doesn't. That's a plot hole to me.
Fun fact
Go.
is that as Artie gets wheeled out, the paramedics or the whoever are wheeling him out, they're actually from the town that they shot in.
Aww.
So the people in the like uniforms who like carried him out are actually people who would have done that from the town.
Life.
So they had true uniform and like, you know, whatever it said on the back of their thing is like specifically from the town. So it's kind of interesting continuity.
I love when things like that happen. I always think of that with was it The Exorcist? The X-ray technician was a real X-ray technician for or not X-ray, some type of like technician that took care of Reagan when they were doing tests on her, and then he ended up being like a serial killer. But still, I think that's so fun and interesting when they use like real life people who actually, you know.
I think when the I don't know what to call him, the like head paramedic guy is talking to Mel about what he must be feeling.
Every nerve in his body must feel like it's on fire.
Yeah.
I don't have a sedative strong enough. Like, he goes on and on about how much pain Artie is in. I'm like, what? Why are you doing this? It's, again, I feel like the entire theme of the movie is just repetitive, like either reactions or a scene goes on too long, from the opening to the cutting back of reactions to a scene. Like, it's so too much. The whole movie is just so too much.
I think it's so fucking funny how he keeps just describing how much pain he must be in.
I don't carry a sedative strong enough to mask the kind of agony he's in right now. Every nerve in his body must feel like it's on fire. Jesus, the pain must be incredible.
Poor guy must be going crazy.
If he's lucky.
After we just saw this man like with boils on his face, like popping up. I mean, he really looked like he was in pain. That's how good the special effects were, or the makeup, or the whatever. Like, beautiful. I was like, why?
So impressive,
Like, this could be done today, and I would be like, oh my god, that's believable.
Yeah. Like, eventually Mel is like, okay, like, and then he goes over to Ben and the other cooks and is like, you know, nobody needs to know about this, you know, right? Like, Artie just had to, you know, go away for a bit. And Ben, who is now has his pants on all of a sudden, it's like, Ben, you know, you're head chef now, right? You know, $15 more a week, and nobody needs to know. This is, I think, setting up that Mel is a piece of shit, and all he cares about is protecting his camp and making sure the dollars keep flowing on in. That's all he's worried about. He just doesn't want anyone to know that this happened.
I think it's a dual note to say that Mel, in his like, we don't want want any of the campers or the parents to know, he's truly protecting the camp under any means necessary. Not in the right ways, some would say. But also, I think it's we should note that the other cook is played by Robert Earl Jones. Is the father of James Earl Jones, who plays the guy in The Sandlot, who plays Darth Vader's voice, like so many things. That was his father.
Wow.
In a true, like, Luke, I am your father moment.
That's a good nugget. That is a good nugget of information. I
thought that was so interesting because as he was talking, well, to be honest, I thought it was James Earl Jones the whole time.
He has like a very like a familiarity about him, but I feel like James Earl Jones is just a bit like bulkier. Like Ben's kind of
but the way
scrawny.
Like the way their voices is so similar that I was like, oh my god, that's him. And then when I was looking at the notes or like doing the research, no, that's his dad.
That's
which is
wild. That is
so
really
wild.
crazy that I didn't pick up on that. So then they cut to the boys' cabin, so Ricky's cabin, where the boys are playing the fucking grossest prank. Did you ever do this? The fucking grossest prank that I've ever seen. So Mozart, who we will come to find out is like kind of the nerd of the group. They're playing a prank on him and he's laying down and they're saying like, you know, we're playing a trick on your mind and I have convinced you so that you won't be able to do a sit-up and you know, and as they're doing this, they have one of the other kids in the cabin stand above him with his pants down, ass crack out. And Ricky's like, okay, try to sit up. You won't be able to. And so he sits up so hard that he face plants into this other boy's butt. That's assault. That would never fly today. I was really offended by it. Of all the things I could have been offended. I was like, I would be livid. I would be livid. Did you do this? You don't seem as upset. You seem pretty fine.
I literally wrote this in my notes. This is where it starts to get a little funny and bullyish, but boys are stupid. And the reason why I say this is because, of course, I've done shit like this in my lifetime.
Did you do that though? Did you do that?
No, okay, so let me think about this for a second because I thought this was very well crafted. This is like, you know, the thing you play as a kid where it's like light as a feather, stiff as a board.
A little bit more
sort of
evil for sure. Evil.
But this is
this is
adolescent
how you get
boys.
pink eye.
This is how you get pink eye, and this is also how to discover if you're gay or not. In some cases, you're like, maybe I did like kind of fallen into that, but I don't know, when his cheek slaps that. Okay, wait a minute. Because I wrote in my next note, I've definitely done something similar in my day. You know, I think what it was is in my day, I feel like the joke was, or the prank was to like wait for somebody to fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, this is so you could do anything when somebody falls asleep, and this is the funny part of it, but also the like sad reality of like, what the fuck are we doing? And what are we implying? What are the implications of this?
It is such a boys will be boys thing, and it's just like boys are nasty. I remember playing around with my like cousins when I was that age, like my dad's side, which are all boy cousins, and them just being fucking sick, just gross with their farts and like just unbelievable with what they would do. And it's very on brand, but I still say I would sue if somebody did that to me. It's fucking wild. They fuck with Mozart. And Mozart. Poor Mozart. And the counselor comes in and he is wearing a fourth of a t-shirt. This is the smallest crop top I have ever seen.
I mean,
this is AC Slater.
This is AC Slater on steroids.
Oh, 1,000. Yeah.
The shirt that this camp counselor is wearing is so short. It's I mean, essentially above his nipples. I don't even. It's a half bra situation. Again, you know, what are they trying to do to me in this film? As a 35-year-old,
I swear I don't remember that. Like I think it wasn't until I was watching it and I was like taking this. I was like, whoa.
I said, wait a minute. First, you're giving me this hot dad scene 1 with the little furries on, and then you're giving me these short ass shorts, underwear shorts, and then a crop top so cropped that I don't even know how to handle this.
Yeah.
If I were, you know, like, if I were one of these kids, I would be like, where am I at camp? I would be questioning a lot.
Well, and that guy is hot too. It's not even like he's like all of them are
You said it.
wicked hot. Like
You said
abs,
it.
beautiful chiseled features. Like what? I would have been at camp 100%. Would have been
Yeah.
lobbying. I would have had a lemonade stand. I would have been making my way to that fucking camp, no matter what it took. These boys are something else. Mm-hmm.
I would have been like,
Yeah.
I'm playing baseball.
Yeah.
And I would have
100%.
fucking clocked by one of the balls.
Yeah.
Because
1000% babes, total babes. So little crop top man comes in and he says, oh, don't tell me Mozart felt for it. No, but what? There are no regulations in this fucking camp. There's no, hey, don't do that. Oh, don't tell me he fell for it. It's fucking chaos. Anything goes.
It's just the time.
It's just the time. And he says, we're all playing baseball game, like get your gloves. I think it's like them against kids that are like twice their age. It's like Ricky, Mozart, like all of these young, I don't think these kids could be more than 12. And then they're playing against like the counselors or something. Like all the kids they're playing against are much bigger and older looking than them.
Yeah, I feel like they got to be playing against like the other bunk or whatever,
They have
like
but like that other bunk. But I have a note about that later on. And like, what is the age group here? Like, what the fuck is happening? Because there are scenes where like, it seems like 17-year-olds are playing with like 11-year-olds. And like, I don't understand like what the deal is here, but it's certainly
a lot of risque business happening.
To say the least, my friend. Yeah, it's interesting. So they're playing this game. Everyone's wearing even shorter shorts, hot pants, denim cutoffs, more crop tops. It's never ending. And there's a lot of like, dick swinging, a lot of shit talking. One of the guys who's up to bat says to Ricky, like, eat shit and die. And Ricky says, eat shit and live. And that is the basis of the entire game. It's just a bunch of trash talking, just whoa.
I am obsessed with that line. So when I took away "we're getting sauteed tonight," I'm taking away this line from this film. Because it's so easy to say "eat shit and die." It's so easy. But boys will be boys. And to say "eat shit and live," love. Sign me. I'm putting it in my my text app right now. It's going to live there rent free, and I'm going to send it to everyone I know.
Put it in your notebook.
Especially
it's a good
my
one.
nemesis.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
All of them.
He's so clever. I love Ricky. He's the best. So they're playing. I don't really pay attention much to the game other than they're shit talking. Mozart. The only thing I really noticed from the game was that there's like a pot ball or something, and Mozart is out in the middle of the field like playing a Game Boy or something, like a old like nothing, and he drops it and he still catches the ball.
It's gotta be, I don't know when Game Boy came out, but it's gotta be older than Game Boy. He's playing this little boxing game, and I remember this shit when you are playing. I do. The like boxing little stick figures on the little, I mean, essentially it's like a cell phone at this point. It's a distraction.
Is that like a calculator? Like it is like an old school.
It does. It does look like a calculator, but this little boxing game and he's playing, and Mozart is obviously the nerd of the group, and he's out in the outfield, and this fucking fly ball comes at him, and he drops his game, fumbles it, but manages to catch it, and it's just a, it's a camaraderie thing for the youngins, but also...
Well, it makes me feel good too, because even though Mozart is Mozart, what a fun name. He's clearly like the geek, the nerd, but they're still like kind of like they're not bullying him. They're just like, oh, Mozart. Like they like to play with him, and but it's a very like innocent type of like teasing. It's not like mean fucking spirited.
For sure. And I think like the most we get out of this game is like maybe a little bit more Ricky character development, and just the fact that he's a shit talker. He's, you know, doesn't deal with anybody's shit.
Yeah. No, he's the
Yeah.
coolest kid on the block. I love that guy. He don't take nothing from nobody.
So they
So
win the game,
they win
and
the
then
game.
tension is high because then they're ridiculing the other bunk, saying like, "We fucking beat their ass. What am I gonna buy with my?" Because there was a bet on the game. What am
Right.
I gonna buy? A Corvette? I'm gonna buy a car. I'm gonna. It would have been easier playing, or it would have been harder playing the girls.
Yeah.
You know.
Ooh.
Ooh,
So
burn.
good. So good. It's a good point. So yeah, tension. The other team's pissed. Like, we'll get them back. They're mad. You know, also because they do look like twice their size. They should have won. You know, although baseball is a game of talent. You know, it's not so much about stature, but still, it was a surprising win. So the next scene, they cut to the social, which is taking place in, it's like an old like rec hall. It's not really so much of a social, it's just like a gathering of the children in this central location. I don't even think there's music being played. They're just all in this one location. The boys who lost the game are all plotting on how they're going to go skinny dipping and how they're going to get the girls to come with them. And they look over and they see little Angela sitting by herself, and one of the guys dares these boys to go over and invite her to come skinny dipping. So they go over, and I can't think of their names, but it's like the blonde guy and a mullet guy. And they're trying to like charm her, and she pulls her quintessential stare. And I've learned so much from this girl. Anytime anybody bugs me, I'm going to do that. Because there's no way to make somebody feel more stupid than just looking at them like that. She tears people apart with that stare. And then they're starting to get enraged. Well, what's the matter with you, huh? Don't you want to come skinny dip? What's going on with you? Something's wrong with her. And they're starting to get more and more upset that she's not responding to them. And as this is happening, good old Ricky walks in the hall with a cowboy hat. I don't know where he got it from, but it is about twice the size of him. It's like a comical foam cowboy hat. It's so big.
Okay, with this hat, how do you fit it in that little backpack? I would have took up the whole backpack. Am I right?
100%. It's cool. I don't know what the decision was there, but it's cool. He walks in. He owns the place in that Stetson. He comes in, guns blazing. He sees those boys messing with his cousin. He rolls right over them. Is like, not on my watch. He straight up gets into a fist fight with this. I don't know if it's the blonde boy or the mullet boy. He gets into a fight with one of them.
Mullet boy.
Mullet boy. And
there's another drinking moment as Angela's staring as they're fighting.
Oh, honestly, people are going to probably die if they have to do that drinking game. That is the majority of the movie. So they get into a tete-a-tete, bigger than they get into a fight. Mel, everyone's kind of just watching it. Eventually, some of the counselors pull them apart and they leave. And Paul walks over to Angela and he's really sweet. He's like, "Hey, I heard about what happened to you with your family. Like, I'm really sorry that happened." And he's kind to her. I really like Paul. He's kind for now. He loses it later, but in this moment, he's genuine and sweet with her. And he says, "Okay, well, good night, Angela." And as he's walking away, she says, "Good night." And he turns, that's the first time we hear her speak, and he turns around and he says, "Good night." And he's so jazzed. He's so excited. You can see there's some energy there, and I'm happy. I'm happy for both of them. We finally get a speaking Angela, and you get some sparkle out of her.
There is an interesting fact. The length of time it takes for us to hear Angela actually speak.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I think it's probably like 31 minutes into the film or something.
Yeah. But that's pretty substantial considering the movie's only an hour and 24 minutes. Like, you know what? That actress is made out like a bandit. That means, think of all the scenes she had to do where all she had to do was You know what? That's a pretty sweet gig.
The only thing in the last scene that we should talk about is that Judy definitely takes note that Angela is A, speaking, and
Right.
also B, potentially interested in a boy, which,
Mhm.
you know, is a threat to her being the one that should be interested in all of them.
Yeah, I think she's just pissed that a boy isn't talking to her, even though she has no interest in Paul. She just wants all the boys to be interested in her and her giant side pony.
Love.
So that is something to take note of. I
should have had a side pony for this.
I know. I should have got a Judy t-shirt, but I don't really like her. I didn't want to represent her. So the boys are trying to convince all of these girls. They're all out by the water, and they're trying to convince the girls to go skinny dip with them. And the girls are just not having it. They keep going back and forth. And the guys are like, well, fine, we'll do it anyway. And the next scene is all of them literally running into the water, butts out, skinny dipping. But the mullet guy who got into the fight with Ricky convinces one of the girls to take a moonlight ride on the water with him. And I don't know what his end game is here, but as they're out on the water, he makes watch out for the water snakes and the snapping turtles, and he starts shaking the boat, and he tips it over, it capsizes, and they're in the water.
I have one ad because again I read some things right before.
Sure.
That they shot this at the lake that Robert, is it Hiltzik, the director writer?
Yeah.
This is a lake he actually attended, or a camp that he actually attended. Wow. That's where they shot this. And they shot this in fall of 1983, November, right? I think you said.
Yeah.
And the water was freezing. So the fact that they had to skinny dip in this lake, there was one actor who was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm fucking done with this shit. Doing whatever. So I thought that was an interesting thing that they were shooting at, late night in fall. And the water's probably freezing and they have to get naked.
I'm fascinated by stories like that where they have actors do uncomfortable shoots like that. It makes me think of have you ever seen Purple Rain? Love Purple Rain. You never saw Purple Rain? Oh man.
Who?
There's a scene in Purple Rain where he convinces a girl to go. He doesn't convince her. He kind of tricks her into go swimming. And I read later on that she almost got pneumonia because the water was so cold and she had to do so many takes, but she was so committed and she had to be naked during it. I'm just always surprised because I guess I think of shoots like Titanic where they're in hot tub, temperature water, and I just always assume everything's that way. But these actors be working for it. You know what I mean? And I don't blame that kid for quitting. I don't think he was getting much from showing his butt in this movie. You know?
And also of the Kenny scene, I think it's Kenny, whatever that character's name is.
I think it is Kenny. Yeah, you're right.
When they flip the boat over, I know that he hurt his hand on this shoot. He flipped the boat over and hit a rock because it was so shallow in that area and hurt his hand.
Wow.
But that's all I know. Filming continued.
Kenny really gave his all. So yeah, he's kind of teasing this girl and he's talking about snapping turtles and whatever, and he starts rocking the boat and he tips them over and she's like, fuck you. She swims away back to shore, and for some reason he decides to go back under the boat. I don't know if he was trying to tip it back over or what his deal was, but he goes back under the boat, and as he's under there, a head appears. You only see the back of the head, and he says, what are you doing here? And then he says something like, the other boys will be really interested to see you here. And then whoever it is drowns him with little to no effort. Literally just puts a hand on him and down he goes and gone. He did not put up a fight. And we see nothing more. We cut to the next morning and there's a camp counselor who's real pissed. He has to clean up the area. I guess the skinny dipping boys really left it dirty. And so he is really pissed. He's flipping chairs. Oh my God. And then he
So in short shorts and no shirt.
Yeah.
So clearly this film is for the gays.
Without a doubt. He comes across the canoe. He's like, what's this doing here? He flips it, and there's Kenny, who is dead as fuck. I can't imagine that this is what somebody would look like if they drowned. He's dead. My favorite part is a water snake like crawls out of his like mouth. The irony that he was teasing that girl like, oh, water snake is snapping to her, and then that crawls out is just fucking phenomenal.
The foreshadowing. Yeah, he's again, I'm still impressed by the special effects or whatever.
Oh,
what is
it's
it
so
called?
good. Yeah,
It's not
like
it's not special effects. It's like actual effects. What is that called?
well, that's like practical effects, but I mean, like special effects, any of that is the same thing as like your
Damn.
makeup and your
It's wild. It's
Yeah.
grotesque.
Oh, it's
It's
really
gruesome.
vile. It's very vile. So he sees that, and then the next scene is again another ambulance is here, and they're taking the boy away, and the cop is talking to Mel, the camp counselor. And he's like,
Mhm.
I'm not an expert, but I would assume that he drowned, and this happened. And Mel's like, yeah, that must be what it is. We don't want the kids to know. We don't want to upset the kids. The kids must never know. And then Ronnie goes to say something, and he kind of cuts him off like, no, that's what it was. He just drowned. Let's not speak of it anymore. And he's really weird about it, obviously because he doesn't want anybody to know because he's so worried about his fucking camp closing down. And as Mel is walking away, the cop walks off with Ronnie, and he's like, what were you going to say before he cut you off? And he says, well, I was just going to say, I remember that kid being a pretty good swimmer.
Mhm. I also think it's important to note that this cop, this head cop or whoever he is, has a very fine mustache.
Oh, very
right
fine.
now.
Very, very fine.
He's got nice coiffed hair in between the whatever, and he definitely has a real mustache. And later, you never know.
Yeah. That is something to note.
And Ronnie is still in the highest shorts I have ever seen.
Time, and they're crazy. They're just like shorter and shorter. It reminds me of like the hat from Scary Movie. Do you know what I'm talking about? When the hat's like slowly gets bigger and bigger. Like his shorts just keep shrinking and shrinking. And we're not going to notice. And they're about to disappear at any moment. Ronnie is oof.
The shorts combined with the pectoral muscles are
Yeah.
wowzer.
Yeah. He's a good looking guy. He's a good looking guy. So that happens. And then they cut to the girls. The Angela's bunk is playing volleyball. And Angela, of course, is not participating because she's weird. And she's just watching. And as she's watching this play out, Paul comes over. Sweet Prince Paul. And all of a sudden, Angela has come alive. She is no longer mute. She's being a little flirty. Oh, hi. She's a new woman. He has really brought what's the word I'm looking for? He's really brought her out of her shell. He asked her to come to the movie in the rec hall with him. And she says, well, isn't that mandatory? And he says, well, yeah, but I thought we could go together. And she says, what did she say exactly? I think she just says, okay. He says, great. And again, he's exuberant. He's excited. He likes this girl. And I think it's sweet.
I think the fact that Judy is still in her Judy tee with the side pony playing the volleyball, her and Meg, say like, oh, Angela's talking, and she's talking to Paul. That's not allowed.
Yeah.
So they're always constantly the antagonist. They're trying to, ruin Angela's time because she's too weird and they don't like weird. So they're like, you're not allowed to do anything now. So they're trying to police essentially what Judy does very well, and is the fact of talking to boys. But we do get a point where Susie kind of interjects a little bit, right?
Yeah, because was it Judy says like, how come Angela gets to talk to the boys while we all have to play volleyball? I don't know why she talks in such a like pronounced. I feel like everybody in this movie had only done theater acting or something. Like they are so like over the top with their words. And Meg comes over and kind of like shoos Paul away, and then Susie, the nice counselor, says, if you don't want to play volleyball, do you want to go swimming or do you want to do this? Like, is there something else you'd rather do? And Angela, like, very softly and sweetly says, oh, I don't mind watching. She's got like a very sweet tenor, and Susie kind of smiles at her, and they have a nice little moment, and you can tell there are clear alliances forming of the people that are against Angela and the people that are like defending her, and everybody's choosing sides at this point. Next scene, Paul and Angela are leaving the rec hall after seeing the movie. They're hand in hand. There's an energy. They're smiling at one another. Right behind them, though, is Judy with revenge twinkle in her eye, just watching, just so upset that anybody could be interested in anybody but her. And so that's a little foreshadowing. Paul asks if he can walk Angela back to her cabin, and they go that way. And he kind of thwarts her and says, let's go over here. And literally, they get to the side of the cabin, and before like she can even blink, he turns and plants a smoocheroo on her without her even knowing what's what. And she just looks fucking shocked. She doesn't look into it. She's just kind of like, what just happened? And he's like, sorry, are you mad at me? Are you sorry I did that? And she says, no. But she looks startled. She looks very what's what I'm looking for?
She's caught off guard.
Very.
But then he asks for another one,
which is even worse. Read the room, Paul. She is still processing what she just did. And she says, like,
I have to go now.
Yeah. So he plants another smoocheroo on her. I think before she even says okay. Like he says, can I have another one? And he just fucking does it. She doesn't give anything to the kiss. And that should be like, she just is like standing there, like just really shook. And
no, I mean, if she was blank stare before, she was blank stare again.
Yeah.
Just like, it's a little bit forceful, but also, I mean, like, he's shooting his shot, I guess.
He's shooting a shot. He's young, and it's not like an aggressive kiss. It's very much like a peck, but it's still a little weird. And he ain't got no game. And I really thought he did, because he's the only one that's been able to get through to her. He should be able to read her a little bit better. He's kind of thwarted through her, not awkwardness, but he's the only one that got her to talk. And so he's made it thus this far, and now he's just trying to get into the fast lane, and he's no longer preheating the oven.
Good analogy.
Yeah, like so many men, you know what I mean? So
a little slide in here, slide in there.
Indeed.
What happens?
So she says, have to go. She, walks away suddenly. She's not happy. And then we're back at the boys' cabin where they're playing a prank on Mozart. They do the old, he's sleeping. They put shaving cream in his hand, and they do a little like feather tickle to wake him, and he goes to like scratch himself. Oh, he hits himself in the head with the shaving cream. His reaction, though, is a bit over the top. He pulls a knife out and starts threatening everybody with his knife. And as he's doing this, the counselor, short, crappy top counselor, comes in. He's like, what are you guys doing? What's going on here? He confiscates the knife, puts it in plain sight and hides it. You're not going to see this until the end of camp. And he hides it exactly where they can all see where he's putting it. And that is the halfway mark. Do, 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 do.
If I'm going to give my hot take on part 1, is that I started this movie saying, like, this movie is not for me. And then I watched it for what it was, and I developed some more thoughts, some good, some not good.
Sure.
And I feel like we are finally in sort of a stride where we're like, okay, it's not dealing with pedophilia. It is, really going through like the young experience of being away at summer camp. And it feels a little like I can get a little bit more invested because the demeanor of these children, they are children, right?
Sure.
Like, it's shit that would have played out in my childhood. And some good and some bad. There's some bullying, there's some, love interests, there's some risque behavior, I'll say.
Indeed.
And also, in true horror fashion, there's some death, which we love to see. It doesn't say horror on your wall for a reason. I mean, it says it for a reason.
Yeah,
So
for sure. For sure.
I'm glad that we've all signed up for a horror show, and I love the music. I love the campiness. I love the short shorts, and plenty more where that came from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's intense. I'm glad you've come around to it. It is campy with a capital C. It's not to be taken too too seriously. I think that's the thing. If you go into it with like a super horror mindset, it's unlike any movie I've ever seen before. It's so John Waters. It's very like Crybaby, very Hairspray. If he made a horror movie, I feel like it would be something like this. It's so weird, but so good,
Yeah. I can't wait to see more.
Everybody tune in next time for the exciting conclusion of Sleepaway Camp. We look forward to chatting with you. Until then, don't stand over a human-sized boiling pot.